Hey guys, welcome back to Recreational Sniper. Tonight I thought I would take the time to talk about the 308 a little bit. So you guys have known me for a while, and you've known most of all the cartridges that I have shot, owned, and the ones that I still shoot today. And I have a few of those here. Some of these are ones that I have shot and shot for a while and then moved on from them, and some of them are ones that I still shoot today. So you'll probably recognize this little guy here. Obviously that's going to be your 5.56, is a typical 55 grain FMJ, and this is a reload. This is one of my hand loads. And then you'll probably recognize this real big dude here. That's obviously a 50 BMG, and this is a 660 grain FMJ. So, obviously not a reload. I never did get into reloading for that particular cartridge. The others, you may guess that the one that's pretty big like this, not quite as big as the 50 cal, but this is the 338 Lapua, and it's loaded. That's one of my hand loads as well, and it's loaded with a 285 grain ELD match. And then moving on down the line, a couple of cartridges that I really like and still shoot a lot of. This is a 6.5 Creedmoor. If it'll focus. Yeah, kind of. And this particular one I loaded with a 95 grain VMAX, and currently out of a 26-inch preferred barrel, that little dude is smoking hot at 3,400 feet per second average. Really, really amazing hydrostatic shock type of bullet there. Really explosive wounds, for game and whatnot. This guy here is the 6.5 PRC, and you can tell that it is obviously bigger in capacity. It's bigger in diameter. This will give you a good idea. Considerably larger in diameter, and also a little longer, a little bigger case capacity. And that is a factory Norma 143 grain OTM, open tip match, boat tail, hollow point, whatever you want to call it. But the guy we're going to really talk about here tonight is the 308. And I've never owned a 308 before until recently. Never had a reason to own one. I just never saw the point when, both of these guys will do the same job that this will do, just maybe a little bit better. They both have a higher ballistic coefficient, and for my purposes of shooting long range, that translates into they are more efficient at getting to the distances that I want to be able to get to. But I've been doing a lot of thinking lately on this guy, the 308, and particularly in the heavier projectile range. This one is a 175 grain Sierra Match King, and it's a Federal premium gold medal match bullet. But what really gets me about the beauty of the 308 is mostly the barrel life. And the barrel life on the 308 is going to be, most of the time around 5,000 rounds, which for most people, they will never even get close to in their lifetime. But for somebody like me, I easily shoot, more than that every year. And for something, if I'm going to shoot 5,000 rounds in something like a 6.5 PRC or a 6.5 Creedmoor, I really have to worry about having to replace the barrels on those. because the barrel life on the Creedmoor is going to be, 2,000, 2,200, maybe 2,500 rounds if you don't hot rod them too much. On the 6.5 PRC, since we got such a much larger capacity for powder, and we're pushing more powder through the same diameter hole, pushing potentially larger, heavier, not larger but longer, heavier projectiles. They're all the same diameter. 6.5 is a 6.5, so this bullet or this cartridge is the same diameter as that one, but so you're smoking more powder through the same hole, relatively the same pressure, but anyways, you're getting a little more speed out of the projectile and whatnot. So the barrel life on a 6.5 PRC, I've heard that it can range anywhere from 800 rounds to 2,000 rounds. I think the general consensus is that it may last 1,500 rounds. And so if I were just shooting that particular cartridge all year long, and say that I might shoot 6,000 rounds a year, maybe 7,000 rounds a year, that means that I would have to replace the barrel on that rifle at minimum 3 times, but probably more likely 4 times plus, maybe 5 times towards the end of the year, replacing the barrel on that rifle. So that will get kind of expensive when you're talking about replacing a barrel that costs you $500 for a barrel or $600 for a barrel, maybe more than that depending on barrel manufacturers. The particular one that's on my rifle is a 27-inch preferred barrel, and I also have a 26-inch preferred barrel on the 6.5 Creed. So, and those barrels for me are extremely accurate, and I've got no problems with shooting those. They're not like the most high-end brand, but they're not slouches in any sense of the word. They're a really fantastic barrel company. So when you're talking about that, and for me to replace that barrel, like I said, is like $500 give or take, and and they may have gone up in price by now. It may be closer to $600. So, and think about the price of that and replacing it 4 or 5 times a year. Now you're getting up there like $3,000, $2,500, $3,000 a year just for barrels. And then having to wait as well, for each one of those barrels, you might wait, I think their lead time right now is 12 to 14 weeks on a Savage pre-fit barrel. So what I'm looking at the 308 for is barrel life, getting 5,000 rounds out of it. That's 1 barrel a year, easily affordable if I wanted to do a super duper match barrel. And so I'm not out the wait time, and I'm not out the money that I would be with that 6.5 PRC or the 6.5 Creedmoor, having to replace barrels on those. So 1 barrel a year, no problem. That's the beauty of the 308. Plus, with the newer bullets that are coming out, and I'm really excited, I'm going to be trying out the Berger 185 grain Juggernaut. If what they say is true, the range on that cartridge, on that particular projectile in a 308, is basically however far you can shoot based on your adjustment range and your scope. So potentially that is a 1 mile cartridge, 1,600 yard, 1,700 yard cartridge. Even though it will go subsonic around 1,000 or 1,100 yards, give or take, depending on temperature and altitude and that sort of thing. So that's what I really am thinking about for the 308, is being able to have a rifle that I can train with. It kicks harder. I will say that there is more recoil than the 6.5 Creedmoor, and possibly even more recoil than the 6.5 PRC. But I think that comes down to rifle weight. My 6.5 PRC weighs like nearly 25 pounds. So, and my current 308 setup weighs about 14. So, or 14 or 15 pounds likely. So there is more recoil, especially shooting these heavier projectiles like the 175s, and then as soon as I can get them in, the 185s, doing some testing with those, there is more felt recoil that I will have to deal with. It's not going to be like a super ton of recoil, you know, like shooting a 300 WSM or a 300 Win Mag or something, but it is more felt recoil, more of a shove than I will feel shooting through either my 6.5 PRC or my 6.5 Creedmoor. And that just comes down to both of those rifles are much heavier than the rifle that I have chambered for the 308. But yeah, I just kind of want to talk about that. So for me, at this point in time, it makes more sense to kind of go to start shooting the 308 a little bit. Plus, as a bonus, you know, and because, you know, I'm not a competition shooter or anything. I do love shooting long range, but I'm kind of a well-rounded guy, I like to think. And so as a bonus of having the 308 and the 5.56, if you will, which I'm actually working on some long range bullets for that, which I'll show you here in just a second. Hang on. So a little sneak peek into some long range 5.56 ammo. I'm going to go ahead and bring these up to where you guys can see these. Obviously, I'm turning the necks on this 223 brass, and I'm loading the 80.5 grain Berger full bore target match, hollow point, open tip match, whatever you want to call them, the 80.5 grain bullets. And I'm doing some testing with those with Lever Evolution powder, and potentially I want to see if I can really take this out to want to take it out to 1,000 yards. But, you know, I could be just dreaming. That could be just a pipe dream. We'll see. I'm kind of doing some ongoing testing with those 80.5 grain Bergers. I've done testing with them in the past, but I didn't really continue the testing, so I'm kind of actually having to start over, as, you know, my notes and stuff have kind of gotten buried. I have a bad habit of handwriting things down and then losing my notepads, and eventually one day I will have a nice computer set up to where I can record everything and just have it saved on a hard drive. But with that being said, we're going to do some long range with the 223 5.56 in a short barrel. And that's kind of the other thing with this. So what I was getting to is, with having a 308 and a 5.56 bolt action, both of those are extremely reliable platforms. The bolt action itself, that type of mechanism for a firearm, is extremely reliable, extremely rugged, durable, tough, and also an extremely precise action. So that's really the motivation to have there. And for our purposes, in a SHTF scenario, where out of all of these here, if I had to bet on one or two of these cartridges of being available in a time of disaster or, you know, widespread civil unrest, I would say it's going to be either the 308 or the 5.56 /223. And also that would mean 308 /762 by 51 NATO. And the reason why is because our military uses both of those cartridges, and a lot of the militaries around the world also use both of those cartridges. So out of all of these here, You know, even though the 50 cal, the 338 Lapua, the 6.5 PRC, and 6.5 Creedmoor on paper would be like obviously the choice for all out raw accuracy and power, the 308 and the 5.56 are going to be your most reliable source. So in a real bad situation, these big guys out here, they're likely going to be very hard to get a hold of. But the 308 and the 5.56, arguably, there's going to be a bunch of it laying around. You know, when the dust settles, that's going to be the thing that it's going to be everywhere. You know, and even though I know there's a lot of people that really like those cartridges, but yeah, that's going to be your best bet, is either a 308 or a 5.56 you know, type cartridge. Now, if you're like me and you like to have a couple of cases, you know, for every cartridge you shoot, you like to have a couple of cases just stuck back at all times, just in case components get shy, just in case, you know, regulations hit hard on being able to ship ammo and stuff, and you can't no longer order it online and that sort of thing. I like to keep a couple of cases of each one of my favorite cartridges on hand, and that way, you know, if things ever got bad, not saying like, you know, apocalypse bad or anything, but if the regulations just started cutting down so much that we couldn't just order cases of ammo in whatever cartridge that we wanted, at least I would have some for a little while, that, you know, I could do the shooting that I like to do, go to the gun range, and, you know, stretch out my rifles and shoot them. Because for me, that's, you know, a lot of that time it's like, you know, for some other people, it's like playing golf, you know, or building a race car or something like that. It's just, for me, it's a creative release. Some of these cartridges, I can reload really, really well and get really, really good results with them. And some of them, I've been reloading for a while and I get really, really just mediocre results with them, and I don't know why. I just hadn't figured it out yet. But, you know, that just motivates me to keep going and figuring it out. Like I tested recently some 6.5 PRC ammo that I loaded that I just was pretty sure was going to shoot good, and it just didn't. You know, I was getting inch and a half groups at 100 yards with it. I mean, they were consistently that size. They just wouldn't get any tighter. And, well, you know, that just means for me, back to the drawing board type of deal. But the 308 is one of the better cartridges to have, in my opinion. If you're going to be a collector of cartridges and a collector of rifles, sorry guys, you need to have a 308 in your gun cabinet, in your gun safe. There's no doubt about it. Just like the 5.56, you need to have a 5.56. It doesn't have to be anything special, but, you know, you need to have one. That's all there is to it. Just like your 308. You don't have to have anything crazy, but you need one. Just because it's a 308, and just because this is a 5.56. And, well, I really don't need to go any further into that. You just need them. As far as other high-powered long-range cartridges go, you can pretty much pick whatever you feel like shooting, whatever your budget allows for. For me, these two guys down here on the end were a little bit, they were pushing my limits on being able to shoot them and have fun. Surprisingly, the 50 cal is actually cheaper to shoot than the 338 Lapua. But they're both still kind of expensive to shoot. I mean, reloading the 338, I would usually have about $4 a round tied up in those, depending on the type of projectile, the type of powder, the primer, that sort of thing. About $3.50, $4. The 50 cal, these 660 grain just milsurp rounds, you can you can pick these up if you know where to look, and in bulk you can pick them up and get them for like about $3 around, so a little, just a tiny bit cheaper. Now if you got into reloading these for precision use, you wouldn't want to use this brass, and that's for a whole other conversation, but it will get really expensive if you want to get into reloading 50 cal for precision use. You can probably expect to spend $10-12 around on those. But just for plinking use, Milsurp ammo's plentiful and relatively cheap still. But yeah, the 6.5 PRC, if you know where to look, you can get bulk 6.5 PRC for under $2 around. And same thing with 6.5 Creedmoor. Yeah, 308. If you're buying just military type F&Js for 308, it's pretty cheap. If you're buying like these, Sierra Match King, federal premium gold medal match rounds, you're gonna expect to pay a little bit for those. Probably upwards somewhere between $1.50, $2 around, but that's just how it goes. If you want to shoot the best and have the smallest groups, you just gotta kind of fork out the money for it, or complain about your group sizes. Either one, whatever you feel like doing. But yeah, we can go ahead and I'll give you an overview on my rifle if you'd like for the 308. Alright guys, so this is my current 308 setup. I am thinking about going to a little bit shorter bipod just for making it a little more compact, even with this folded up, it's pretty much right at the end of the muzzle, right at the end of the muzzle break. So this particular rifle setup, I'm not really set this up for just all-out precision target use. I've set it up in a way that I think is going to be the absolute most rugged, durable, and reliable setup. This, for me, is more about having very, very reliable accuracy and durability for, one of those SHTF situations. This is going to be just like that go-to rifle, and the 308 being one of those go-to cartridges because of the availability of that cartridge. So I've got a muzzle brake on it well, first things first, this is a very short compact rifle. This is a Ruger American, and it's a Tallow distributor exclusive. It has a 16.1 inch barrel. It's mag fed, uses AICS mags, bolt action. It comes in a Magpul Hunter chassis, or stock if you will, and so it's very practical use. You can change the box mags out quickly. I would encourage you, if you have a magazine fed rifle, you need to have spare magazines. Don't just stick with the one that comes with the rifle. Get some more magazines, especially if you expect to use it in one of them situations where you might need more ammunition and have quicker reloads. But other than that, the factory trigger on these Ruger Americans is actually, it's pretty decent. It's not a target trigger system by any means. Definitely not set up for a lot of target use. But it is adjustable from like 3 to 5 pounds. So you can knock it down to 3 pounds, which is pretty nice. It's really crisp. There's not a lot of take up on them. Which is good on Ruger's part. They did a great job with just an everyday rifle setup. And these aren't super expensive for what you're getting. Coming in the Magpul Hunter stock, if you have to buy that stock for another rifle, you're going to pay like $220 to $300 depending on where you get it from and that sort of thing. So buying a rifle that costs $500 or $600 and then having to immediately spend another $300 for a very simple stock system, that's, you know, you're getting a pretty good deal with this. These will come in around $800 plus shipping and tax and whatnot. So I think it's a pretty good package setup just from Ruger. So anyways, everything's all Cerakoted, this gray color. So for me, that was a big plus, you know, for the weather resistance and durability and that sort of thing, rusting resistance and all that. A few things that I changed up on it was adding the muzzle brake. This is a Ultradyne Pegasus tanker type brake, and it's also compensated, so it'll help keep that muzzle from jumping, which short barrel rifles, not to be, when I say short barrel rifles, I mean 16-inch rifles. Most of my rifles are like 26, 27, 28 inches, so like long, heavy, big target rifles. So a 16-inch rifle for me is a very short barrel rifle. But what I've noticed is these little 16-inch rifles is that muzzle tends to try to jump up a lot off that bipod if you're shooting prone or shooting off a bench or whatever. So having a muzzle brake that's compensated, that'll keep that muzzle down and keep the recoil going straight back, helps a lot. Will say using a muzzle brake on a short 308, the muzzle blast is quite substantial, and if you're not used to it, it's going to catch you off guard, and it's going to kind of shake you a little if you're not used to it. It was surprising to me, even though shooting like my 6.5 PRC with a big brake on it. I use a APW Axis Precision Works their Raptor brake. I use the Monster. It's like the 5-port brake, really big brake. And but I think the difference is this brake is so close to you, so much closer, that, you know, with that 27-inch barrel, getting that brake further away from you actually really makes it pretty mild as far as the sound goes and that pressure wave coming back. But having the brake that closer to you is it's gonna be kind of unnerving at first if you're not used to it. Another thing that I did, and you know, that I kind of wanted to do for long range purposes, because I really wanted to be able to get as much out of this 16-inch barrel as I could, was I ordered a custom 40 minute of angle base, which I've said before is like roughly 11.6 mils, 11.6 mil base. And I want to do that to try to get as much range as possible out of this rifle. And on top of that, I'm using a fixed 12 power SWFA SS scope. These are formerly known as the Super Sniper scopes. Back in the day, these were built to DOD specification for a contract with our military. I don't know the exact full story on it, but anyways, they're still built to that same specification today, and they build these fixed, really tough fixed powered scopes. You can get them in like a 6 power, 8 power, 10 power, 12 power, which is what I got here, 16, 20 power, just depending on the application and what you want to use it for. I really wanted to go with the 10 power in MOA reticle and MOA turrets, but unfortunately right now it appears that SWFA may be going out of business, or they may just be having a flash sale and they may be coming out with a whole new lineup of scopes. I'm not really sure. I don't know what's going on with them. But when I went to order my scope, the only one that I could find that really fit the bill was this fixed 12 power, and unfortunately I had to go with one that is in mils, with a mil scale reticle and mil scale turrets. But I'm not really upset with that, because it actually helps me help you guys understand the difference between minutes of angle and mils. I do understand the difference between those two, but I really don't have any experience actually using the mil scale reticle, so this is a whole new venture for me as far as long range precision shooting goes. But also the motivation behind the fixed powered scope, the real motivation behind that is two things. One primary would be the durability. There is less moving parts in here that can get messed up in the event that I may or may not drop this rifle. And the secondary would be elevation and windage range. And because there is less moving parts in here, the erector assembly can be built in such a way that even in this 30mm tube, this thing has something like 137 minutes of angle of adjustment, which calculates out to roughly 40, well, it's in mils, so it calculates out to 40 mils of adjustment range, which is a ton in a 30mm tube. And that equates to having a scope that is lighter weight. The big Arkans with the 34mm tubes that I use on my long range target shooting rifles, those scopes are like 34, 35 ounces. This one here is like 20 ounces, 22 ounces, something like that. So quite a bit lighter, which kind of helps out with the weight of this thing. Even though it is kind of heavy, it's not too heavy to tote around all day. And with those Arkans, with more lenses and glass and stuff, more weight, there's more chances that if you were to drop one or something, it could get damaged. And if you ain't got the time to send it in, have it checked out, and maybe get a new one from Arkan, you know, you could be in a situation where you're just kind of SOL. So with this SWFA, I get a little more durability out of it, a little more adjustment range. Like I said, the Arkan's got like 110 minutes of adjustment range, and this has like almost 140. So that's quite a bit more range that you can potentially get out of it. And then also a plus is the cost factor of it, and having less adjustment stuff to deal with because it's not a variable power, and actually having less lenses inside of it because of that. Using the glass that they use, you actually still get a really clear, nice picture. I would, you know, it's actually very, very clear and very, very nice for what it is, for the amount of money that you pay for this scope. I picked this one up with the rings. I believe it was like $250, which is, it's impressive for $250. I will say that is a really nice scope, and shooting it at the range is nice. I really like it a lot. The second plus to it has to do with the parallax adjustment. And if you look here, you'll notice that it has no turret on the left side of the scope for parallax adjustment. The parallax adjustment's actually linear. It's in line here with the tube of the scope. And I kind of was thinking about this as like an afterthought. You know, after I bought it, I was going, you know, that actually makes a ton of sense, because I can mount with this stock setup. I can use these QD mounts and this QD quick disconnect sling, and I can have my sling set up in such a way that I can throw this rifle on my back and nothing's poking me in the back. You know, even if, you know, if you're wearing like a jacket or a vest or something like that, it really wouldn't bother you. But if you're just wearing a t-shirt, you know, having that turret jab you in the back may be extremely uncomfortable after just a little while. So having it set up this way, I don't have to worry about any of that. It's actually extremely comfortable. Just throw it over my shoulder, over my back, you know, across, you know, going across me. And it doesn't poke me in the back, doesn't bang me anywhere. I don't, you know, feel anything digging into my back. So if I had to hike for a while with this thing, just, you know, throw it over my back, it would never get to a point to where it was super, super uncomfortable to carry. So super big plus on that. Plus, it's the only rifle I got that I actually have a sling on. because my other rifles are big enough and heavy enough that they're not going to be something that I'm going to want to put a sling on and throw over my shoulder and try to carry around. Those rifles are like, you know, you just don't want to carry them very far. You talk about carrying a 25-pound rifle and then carrying another 10-15 pounds worth of ammo, and then your, you know, all your other peripheral equipment, your Kestrel, rangefinder, spotting scope, and all that stuff. I mean, you might be carrying 50 or 80 pounds of gear, all said and done, depending on how much you really need or how far you're going out and that sort of thing. And with this very simple setup. So one other thing before I leave you guys, I'm doing a few changes on my ballistic charts here. And one of the changes is up here, I've started including the SG, or the gyroscopic stability factor. And the reason why I've started including that on my charts is for use out in the field, so that I don't have to look it up. I just know what that is, because that's an important number to know when you're trying to calculate your spin drift. And this is some of the first bits of data from the other day when we went out and shot, and it was 80 degrees out. And I also started setting my charts up in 1 minute or 1 inch of mercury sections. The first chart's obviously set up at sea level at 0 feet, so 2992. And then the second chart's 29 even, which come out to 899 feet. And the third chart that I'm using comes out to 28, and which is 19 or 10 feet. Because the two places that I really shoot the most are going to be close to this 29 and close to this 28. Where we shoot the range, our range is like about 630 feet in altitude, and where we're shooting long range out in the woods is going to be about 1,700 feet in altitude. So we'll be able to interpolate this chart. We'll be able to change it up a little bit and kind of interpolate our drop values. You know, being able to look in between what they're going to be for these two barometric pressure zones will help. And then you'll notice on here the SG is going to change, or your stability factor is going to change for every barometric pressure zone that you're in. So your spin drift is going to change a little bit. So that would be something you probably want to keep track of. That's why I'm adding it into these charts. But yeah, that's about all I have for tonight. I know this is kind of going on for a little bit. I know I've been rambling. I know that I haven't put out any more shooting videos, even though I did go shoot this past weekend. I just, you know, sometimes I just don't feel like setting up to film anything, and have to think about what I'm talking about, and have to try to explain to you guys what's going on, and try to shoot and concentrate on shooting at the same time. Some of it, you know, a lot of times that's a really big hassle, so we ended up not doing that this past weekend, because first I was trying to dial in and line out this new rifle, and then I was also assisting a buddy of mine with his rifle and trying to dial in and get it lined out as well, because, you know, he made some changes on his rifle that, you know, needs some help with. But yeah, and maybe this weekend we may be just going back to the normal gun range, or we may actually be taking this dude out and seeing what it does at long range. It is shooting pretty good right now. It's not shooting great. We are getting about 1 minute of angle accuracy out of about, we're able to get about 1 inch groups on average. Some of them are a little bigger than that, like up to 1.5 inches, and some of them are a little smaller, down to about 3/4 of an inch. But